If you have any coding projects and you want to send emails using Gmail and SMTP, how do you do that? It's actually really straightforward, and I'm going to show you today how you can set up any Gmail account to work with any coding project in any language, send emails from an existing Gmail account. I'm also going to cover how to do this specifically using the Python language. So whether you've got to send reports or alerts, Gmail and SMTP makes it really easy to do this with Python as well. So I'm going to create a reusable function with you that you can use in any of your Python coding projects to send emails from Gmail with an existing Gmail account. Super simple, super easy. So first things first, I need to dive on over to the Google account homepage. And what we need to do is we need to create something called an app password. But I'm going to walk you through all of that right now. So here I am logged into my Google account, a testing account I'm using for this instructional video. And you need to be logged into the Google account that you plan to use to send emails from. So whatever Gmail account you're using to send these emails, be logged into that and head to the Google account homepage like I am here. Now, the first step, you need to head on over to the security tab on the left, click on that and load that page. Once you're in there, the next bit is we need to ensure that we've got two-step verification turned on. So you'll see here, two-step verification, click on that, and it'll take you to the next page. Depending on how quickly you logged in, you may need to enter your password again, but that's fine. Just enter your password, you'll get back onto this page, and you need to make sure you've got two-step verification or 2FA enabled. This is essential. Now, I've obviously already got it turned on, so there's nothing for me to do, but if you haven't got it turned on, you just need to turn it on, choose one of the methods that you like, whether it's a Google prompt, authenticator, phone number, etc. Add that, and once you've done that, you'll then be back on this page. It's key, add two-step verification, then be back on this page. Okay, after we've done that, we scroll on down and we see something here called app passwords. We then click on this arrow and it takes us to the next page. And this is the important part. Now, I have already created an app password a while ago for a Java email client that I was building, but you can do this in any language. And what you want to do is essentially create an app name here. This is just something that you're labeling as. You can keep track of it. So I could call this general email client, for instance. I simply add that name, click create, and I'm then going to be shown an app password. So I'm going to click create now, and there you go. There is my app password. I need to now copy this down. Now it's essential. You need to copy this because we're going to use this within our code to securely send emails from this Gmail account. Now let me try and explain what's happening here. Now when you log into your Gmail account, you have a password and you have your login. Great. That's when you do it using the Gmail interface. Now if you're sending emails programmatically using a coding project, you use the app password here. This app password is specifically for using programmatically within your coding project. You do not use this password to log in via gmail.com. You use this to send emails from your coding projects. So there are two passwords now for one login. You've got your normal login password, then your app password, which is for your apps to be able to send emails using Gmail. Hopefully that makes a lot of sense. You copy this down, you've then got that done. Once we've got that all set up, we're actually ready to get started with the fun part, because once we've set up the backend to create an app password, any of our coding projects can now use these credentials to send emails from our Gmail account on our behalf. Really straightforward, isn't it? Hopefully you can see that was super simple. So as I promised, I'm now going to show you how to do this in Python. I'm going to create a simple function for you that you can use in any of your Python coding projects to be able to send emails reliably and easily from Gmail using your Gmail account. Okay, so now we've got that. The next step is we need to head on over to our terminal. Okay, so here I am at terminal. Now, for Python, we're going to be using a package called python.env. So what you need to do is pip install python.env. Now, I've already got this installed, but I'll click enter anyway and you'll see it's satisfied. We need to install this. We're going to be using this. And why are we doing this? Well, we're going to be storing our credentials, which is our email and our app password within a .env file, an environment file. And why are we doing that? Because it allows us to store sensitive information rather than hard coding it into our Python script. It's always a bad idea from an OPSEC perspective to hard code credentials into files, because what if you share those files with other people? You're then exposing those credentials. So we install this package, which we've just done. Excellent. We then need to head on over to our coding editor. So I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code. And as you can see, I've got a file set up and ready to go. This is email_setup.py, but I also have this .env file. And if I go in here, you see I have two variables. This is key. We're creating two environment variables: email address, which is your email address at gmail.com, then the email password, which is your app password. Now I'm using a plugin in VS Code to obscure my password, hence the padlock here. I know I showed you a password a moment ago. That was for one I created for fun, but I won't actually be using it long term. But you want to store your password and your login email within here, and then they are now securely stored in this env file rather than hard coded into our script. So again, I'm belaboring this a little bit, but it's nice and secure if we store them in the env file because it prevents accidental exposure when sharing our code. Excellent. So now we have our credentials stored in that file. We now have to get on with writing our Python code. And as always, this is going to begin with our imports. And we can import a bunch of libraries. We can import SMTP lib, OS, we're going to use the MIME text and MIME multipart libraries to import some classes from there. And also we're going to be using the .env package that we just installed. So let's get on with these imports. We've got SMTP lib, we've got OS, we've also got from email.mime.text import MIME text, and then from email.mime multipart, great. And then from .env, we're going to import load.env. Excellent. So that's all our imports taken care of. Okay, so SMTP lib will handle sending emails. OS will help us retrieve our environment variables. The MIME text and MIME multipart is so we can format our email messages when we send them. And load.env loads our variables from our .env file. Hopefully that makes a lot of sense. So now let's begin. We're going to load our environment variables with load.nice call there. Great, we've now loaded those. Now let's configure our email server. So we're going to use an SM server variable. We're going to assign this, of course, smtp.gmail.com, which makes a lot of sense because we're using Gmail, of course, to send emails. SMTP port for Gmail is going to be 587. Then we need an email address. And where are we going to get this from? Well, this is going to be very clear in a moment. So I'm just going to assign that blank string for a sec and do blank string. Excellent. And of course, we also want our email password. Excuse my typing. I've got a new keyboard and I'm just getting used to it. Okay. So how are we going to get our email address and password? If you recall, we stored them over here in our environment variable file. We want to pull those in rather than hard coding them. We want to pull them in dynamically from that file and load them to these variables within this Python script. So that's how we're going to squirrel them away. We keep them out of sight and we're going to dynamically assign them to these variables. And all we need to do is follow. We can use the OS, we can use .getEnv, and then what do we want? Well, we want the name of our environment variables, which is going to be email address for the email address. And then we could copy this. Let me just get rid of that space because that's not going to work otherwise. Got to be obviously exactly as it's written within your .env file. And then obviously here is going to be what? Password, because we stored it as password. And that's it. We have now dynamically fetched those credentials from this file and assigned them to these variables, which allows us to set up our SMTP configuration. This is essentially the most important part of this entire Python mini project. We are setting up access to Gmail using these credentials, okay? And as you can see, it's really easy to get those from the environment variable file. So make sure, of course, that you have stored your app password in here and you're using these exact environment variables. If you change the environment variables, that's fine, but make sure that you update them here. Everything needs to be obviously corresponding. Awesome. So we are now ready to create an email function because we've defined the SMTP server in port Gmail. We've got our credentials. Let's create a function that allows us to send a test email to verify everything's working. Now we've created all this. It's key to ensure we can actually send emails, right? We want to make sure everything is functioning smoothly. So let's just create a nice basic function. Let's call it send email. And let's pass in some parameters. So let's say we have the recipient's email. Let's pass in the subject and let's pass in the body. That sounds reasonable to me. And then within this, we can use a try and accept block because I think if we try and send an email and it fails for some reason, maybe something's wrong with Gmail, we want to handle it gracefully. Now, this is obviously a pretty Pythonic and decent coding practice for all software engineering, but that's why I'm using try accept. So we're going to use a try and we're going to say the following. Okay, we need to create a message and we're going to use the MIME multipart class to create a message object. And then we're going to set some of the attributes. So we're going to say from, and where's it going to be from? Well, of course, it's going to be from our email address because that's where we're sending the message from. Okay. And then we're going to set to. And for this, we are going to say it's the recipient email because that's what we're passing into our function over here. Of course, we're passing that in. So we're going to set it as the to attribute. And then we're going to say the subject, I think you can see where we're going here, is going to be equal to the subject. Great. All right. Now we want to attach the actual message. So we've passed in the body. Now let's use that. So we're going to use message.attach. To attach what? Well, we're going to attach a MIME text object and we're going to say pass in these variables. So these are the parameters we want, body, and then we're going to say it's type plain. Excellent. Right. So now we have a message all set up. Okay, we've got a from, a to, a subject, and a body, and that message is ready to be sent. So how do we send it? Straightforward. We need to use our SMTP server that we started to configure up here. Now we need to do something with this information. Okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to use a context handler. And we're going to say SMTP lib Okay, if I can spell it properly, SMTP lib, and we're going to say .smtp, and then within this, we're now going to configure it. So we're going to say SMTP server, SMTP port, and then we're going to say we'll use this as server, and then we are now inside our context handler. And the reason we're doing this, it means we haven't got to open and close. It's all handled gracefully by the context handler. It's a very Pythonic way to handle things. So now we've got our server, we've opened it up. We need to start the connection, we need to log in and send the email, okay? So what are we going to do? We can say server dot start TLS, okay? Perfect. And that's our secure connection. And then we need to log in, server.login. And how are we going to log in? Well, we're going to use our credentials, aren't we? We've got our address and our password. Okay, now think about it like this. Server.login with these credentials is a bit like going to gmail.com and entering your address and password. The only difference is we're doing this programmatically and we're entering the email address and our app password, which is the password specifically for our coding project. So that should make a lot of sense. It's intuitive, I think, fairly intuitive. Next, we need to do something else with the server. What is that? We need to send our message. So we're going to send mail, and then we're going to pass in the email address, we pass in the recipient email, and we're going to pass in the message. We're going to do message as string. Okay, and I need to make sure that I use my parentheses there to call that. Great, message as string. And that is everything done. We have now used our server to start a connection, log in, and send the message. But now let's create a nice print message to let us know that the email has been sent. So we can say email sent successfully, huzzah. Great, so that shows us that's all great, but we did use a try and accept block, so we need our accept to close it out. So let's just say we're going to accept any exceptions, and we're going to assign it to E. And if there is an error, let's just make a nice simple F string and just let ourselves know at the console there's an error sending the message, and then we use our placeholders, and we will print out whatever the error may be. Excellent. So our function is now all set up. And let's see how it works. We create an email object using my multipart. We set the sender, the recipient, and the subject. We attach the email body as plain text. We then connect to the Gmail SMTP server. We authenticate, and then we send this mail. And if something goes wrong, we're going to catch and display the error. Okay, so the final part is, of course, to test this. And how are we going to test this? We need to run this function, of course. So let's just create a standard if name is equal to main block. And then within this, we need to do some things. Well, we need to assign some variables, right? We need a recipient, it's going to be a string. We also need a subject, which is also going to be a string. And what else do we need? Well, we need a body. So of course, we are passing all of these parameters in to our function as the arguments to our function. So send email, and then we're going to pass in a recipient. We're going to pass in subject, and we're going to pass in body. Now, of course, these are all blanks. Let's add something to them. Now, just to keep things nice and simple, I think I'm going to use my own email address here, and I'm essentially going to send an email to myself. You could add anything you want here, that's fine, but I'm going to send an email from me to me. And let's create a nice simple test. So it would be test email from Python for the subject. And then we'll just say this is a test email sent using Python and Gmail SMTP. Full stop. So now we can save this file, and the final step is actually to run it. So we've created everything that we need. Now let's test and make sure everything works the way we expect. I'll then head on over to my inbox, and we'll see if an email arrives successfully. Hopefully it will. We need to head back over to our terminal. I'm just going to clear that all away just to make it a bit neater. And we need to run this code. So it is called email setup. I'm going to hit enter, and what I expect to see, hopefully, is a print message saying it's all gone swimmingly. Of course, there may be some errors in the code. I didn't check it super carefully, but I think it was fine. So I'm going to hit enter now. And what do we get? Email sent successfully. Oh, that's promising. So how do we verify this? Well, we need to head back on over. Remember, we're over here. Well, I'm done with that. Let's now go to my inbox, and then I've got to security alert, that's fine. But then I've got an email from myself, test email from Python. It worked. Great stuff. So now we can see that the email was successfully sent using SMTP and Gmail. Excellent stuff. Hopefully your email has arrived to whichever inbox that you assigned, and everything has worked just as nicely for you as it has for me in this example. And that's it. We have enabled Gmail SMTP access for use in any coding project with any coding language. We have stored our credentials securely, And I've also, true to my word, created a Python function to send emails, and I've tested this. It all works fine, and now this is able to be used by you in any of your Python projects. You can use it any way that you like in any Python project that requires connecting to Gmail to send emails. So you've now got this really neat, succinct piece of code that you can use any way you like in any of your Python projects, and your credentials are neatly tucked away in environment files, so you don't have to expose anything or hard code it into any project. So I hope you found this tutorial helpful. By all means, feel free to leave any comments if there's anything that you'd like me to cover, or something you didn't quite understand, or something that maybe I didn't explain that clearly. Hopefully it was simple enough to follow along with. But yeah, thanks for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.